My name is Austin. This is the Fourth Dimension Wellness Podcast. Today we have a good friend of ours, Jacob Drabant. He is with The Arbor. He's one of the directors out there. The Arbor is a great treatment center here in Georgetown. I actually met Jacob when I was getting sober. He was one of the first faces I saw. This was about 4 years ago. I show up to this ranch out in the middle of nowhere, and I have an abscess on my neck. I am dying physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm falling apart. I'm crying every 30 seconds. And I see Jacob, and he just has this welcoming presence. He has 2 ankle monitors on him at the time, like big boy ankle monitors, like one on each leg. He shows me to my room. And I remember as that like week progressed and the next week progressed, I gravitated towards Jacob because he seemed like a guy who's walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And I thought that was really important. And then more than anything, like I gravitated towards him because like, it's really hard to ask for help from someone who you don't think has been through it. And it was really obvious to me, like, Jacob had been through it and he had found a way out and he was living like a happy and sober life. And it's funny because, you know, that was 4 years ago, roughly 4 years ago. And in that short time, Jacob is now one of the directors at a huge treatment center.
Manager.
A manager. He's a big dog. I don't know. I don't really know what his role is. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Jacob, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm just happy to be here.
Sweet.
It's always a humbling experience, you know, when somebody asks me to do something like this, because a lot of years went by and people really only called me to help them destroy their lives. You know, today it's very different. It seems like so long ago, but you know, there's times and experiences where it just seems so close, you know.
Yeah, man. One of the things too, kind of Austin brought up in the intro, and it just like clicked in my head, is like one of the first times I met you, and I just brought it up. It was pretty early on when you were kind of getting into the recovery space of working in recovery, and you had like taught a class, and came up and you were so enthusiastic about first teaching the class and then like wanting to know like if you did well, right? And man, it was just the effort that you were putting towards like this way of life that we talk about, right? Like living down like a principled path. And like I saw the effort that like not only that you were physically doing that, you were trying to do this, but like in your eyes, man, when you were talking to me, and just like I imagine Austin would say, but like that was a huge proponent to me, like pushing forward, was seeing a guy like you putting in the effort, like wanting to do this and just walking around like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember our morning meditations when Jacob was there were night and day different versus like anyone else on the facility. Like when Jacob was around, like the classes just felt different. They hit different. Even the morning meditation. One time for morning meditation, we did like this crazy motivational speech, and like by the time it ends, I'm like, yes, let's go. Super fun, man. How do you like your new role out at the Arbor in Georgetown?
It's a really good place to work for.
Yeah.
Like it's built on ethics, you know, and it doesn't really waver from that. Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility, but I think, you know, responsibility feels good these days. It sounds weird for me to say that, right? But like responsibility sounds good these days. I think the biggest thing about just working in treatment in general is just I can never mistake this for my own personal recovery.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm blessed that I have an opportunity to help men and women. I'm blessed to be surrounded with the team that I have. But you know, it can't be my own recovery, and that's the biggest thing that I see. People make mistakes whenever they come into this field. And I got to tell you, man, like it's either for you or it's not for you.
Yeah.
Like it's either something that you're really going to dive into and follow through with and you're going to make it a career, or you're going to know pretty quick if it's not your cup of tea, you know? But I thrive in chaos.
Yeah.
Right. Like I thrive in I thrive in confusion, and you know, it's, I don't know if you ever seen that movie Wanted, but it's like, but it's like I get in those situations and everything just kind of slows down, and you know, that's kind of where I operate well under those conditions, man. So
I think also too, just knowing you like I do, and kind of being at the very beginning of that for you, I think it's just a spot for you, not only because like obviously you're saying it's coming out of your mouth, right? But that kind of gets to my point is like, man, one of the first times I met you, you ever meet people, and especially in treatment, especially when you're coming through treatment, in the rooms, like all that type of stuff, like the bullshit meter on somebody. Do you know what I mean? Like you can look at someone and they're telling you something and I'm just like, okay, dude, whatever you say. When I met Jacob, and to this day, like it's never even gone up a little bit. When I talk to you, it's never like, this is some bullshit right now. Like I've never had that with you. And I imagine kind of like when you're sitting across from a guy or whoever you're working with, right? Especially working in treatment, that like that not going up is a huge proponent of people being like, okay, like I can believe what this guy's telling me, right? And that's gigantic, man, especially when you're trying to have somebody like shift their life into like, hey man, I know you used to live down this path, but like I've got this more beautiful path for you. You just need to do some stuff a little bit different. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be different, but like let me at least show you. And like just the look, like I said, in your eyes, or just listening to you, that bullshit meter doesn't go up, at least for me. And like I want to listen what this guy's got to say. I think it's been since day one, bro. Since like that I've met you, that I've never come across. That's why, man. When first person I called when I had to switch sponsors, or the first person I talked to was you. I said, "Yo, dude, I need a new sponsor. What do you think?" You gave me a name. That guy's still my sponsor today. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I innately trust this man. So it's a cool thing.
Hell yeah.
Connections are important.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the whole gift of sobriety is such a blessing in itself. It's like for so long I had the inability to make any kind of connection, like true connection with anybody. It's a blessing in disguise. And you know, if somebody's like just beginning this journey, I don't expect them to understand, but like it's a true gift that I've been giving, something that forces me to make connections with other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or I'm going to die. You know, my experience has shown that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that lone wolf shit is always how I like lived my life and did my thing, and like it got me fucking nowhere. And like thankfully I was forced into a situation where, well, not forced into a situation at all. Actually, I was blessed with this opportunity for more responsibility, right? Which I think is just an amazing topic. It's like, that's my life today. Wow, I'm squirreling hard on that topic, but we should resurface that one. But what was I saying again?
Squirreling hard on the topic of responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah, we could do, I wasn't going to do responsibility, but yeah, we could talk about responsibility. Yeah, no, it's cool today because like in every life previous, right, I never wanted any responsibility. I wanted to lone wolf. I wanted to be all by myself, and I was blessed with this opportunity for responsibility of managing this PHP house, and I did it for like 2 years. And like during that time, I was forced into a community, right, like forced into it. They were shoved down my throat, and now today it's like this really beautiful thing where I can go to any room, any treatment center, any place, and like at some point during that 2 years, like I saw somebody in that facility that came through this house, and it's cool. It's like this huge community built up around me, and then you know the responsibility piece, how it, you know, like whether it's work, right? This fourth dimension wellness has become like a lot of responsibility, and I have a daughter at the house now, and that's a lot of responsibility. I have a wife at the house, that's a lot of responsibility. We have a house, that's a lot of responsibility. And all of those things, like how fortunate am I to like have these things, right? If we rewind the clock 3 years ago, I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I didn't have anyone who gave a fuck about me. I was completely alone. I was all by myself. I met Jacob. That was that was about it. And then prior to Jacob, there was someone who was nice to me. There was a nice nurse at the detox unit. That was about the extent of it. And like today, it's blossomed and grown.
Well, the thing too about like what all three of us are involved in is you're talking about responsibility, right? And I completely agree. You know, isolating away, avoiding from everything, lone wolfing, whatever I wanted to call it. Responsibility was always in my life. The opportunities are always placed in my life. I was just so asleep to even viewing it that way, or viewing it as something that, like Austin was talking about with 4D, with the daughter, with the wife, with all of these things. Like, you're just ecstatic to have this opportunity at responsibility. When I'm given this opportunity, it probably looks a little bit different, right? 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it might be, clearly looks a little bit different, but the opportunity is there. It's placed in front of me. Here's an opportunity for you to grow, Brett. Here's an opportunity for you to grow, Jacob. Here's an opportunity for you to grow, Austin. But I'm just so crushed internally for whatever reason that I'm running from it, right? And yeah, I'll sit here and I'll tell you, I'm lone wolfing it. But what I'm doing is I'm avoiding it, right? Because I'm fearful that I'm going to fuck it up. Or I'm fearful that I'm not going to do it right, or I'm fearful that someone's going to look at me a certain way because, you know, maybe I didn't do it to their liking, whatever the hell that is. But yeah, I can ride with the lone wolf, but like in reality, I'm just afraid of it. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to be given the power to look at it completely different today. Responsibility, that is, if we're circling around that.
And it's still scary sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, I think a big part of it, and a big thing that like drives that and that fearful feeling whenever somebody comes to me with some extra responsibilities is shame. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's at the root of everything. And like the example that I'll give you is yesterday I met a good friend of mine who's a brother who's like on the same path that I am. And we went down to, we were going to get lunch, and we went to Whole Foods, right? Nice. And we went over to Whole Foods. And we went in there. I didn't really know how anything worked because I don't really go to Whole Foods a lot. I don't really go to Whole Foods a lot. And we got our food, and we went and we sat down outside, and both of us were just sitting there quiet. And it was like, I'm telling myself that I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm telling myself that these people are better than me. Like, I'm watching people pull up in their nice cars, and it seems like they got their shit together, and they're walking into Whole Foods, and they've got their families and stuff. And like, him and I are both sitting there, and it's like, man, I feel so out of place. And it's like, what is that really? Mm-hmm. And it's not that I think that those people think that they're better than me, but I really thought that they were better than me.
Right.
And I had to check myself for a second, because we're both sitting there, and it's like, based on who I used to be and the things that I used to do, even though I've got 5 years of experience today not doing those things and not being that person, man, it was real easy for my mind to go back and just tell me like, hey man, like, you're way out of place right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you need to get over to Randall's or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But like, that's where my mind went. That's where my mind went.
Stop and shop,
yeah, dude. Yeah. That's where my mind went. And like, you know, having the awareness through this thing, and like, through constant self-examination and stuff, him and I were both able to like sit there and like talk about it and come to the conclusion that this is definitely fear showing up, or shame showing up. Mm-hmm. And like, it's like we had this little session right there, like eating this pasta salad and fish from Whole Foods, sitting outside. And it's like we had this like spiritual little session where we were both able to identify and kind of talk each other through it. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, man, I'll be back here next weekend.
It's so funny too, because it's like was your perspective of you, right? Like, you're Shane. Like, when you said you're at Whole Foods, I was like, my boy would be at Whole Foods, right? Like, my version, my perspective of you is like, you definitely belong at Whole Foods. You know what I mean? Like yeah, your transformation journey with your body, your mind, your spirit. I mean, you're the full holistic package as far as like transformation goes, right? And so like, when you're like Whole Foods, I'm like, yeah, he would be at Whole Foods. Let's go. And like, turns out like you eat at Whole Foods, and you're like, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
So it's funny, man. Like, you know, just depends on how you're viewing yourself, right? Is it through my eyes or through yours?
I have one of my mentors, right, or my sponsor. He's been my sponsor from day one, and he told me early on. He said, in this deal, it's important to listen to what other people say. And he said, let me see, make sure I don't butcher this. He said, they're like cosmic mirrors put here by God to give you a reflection of your own reality.
Yep. I fucking love that one.
It's beautiful, right?
I love that. And that's half of what fucking coaching is, you know, while we're on that subject. I have this conversation with people all the time. Sometimes I'm like, hey man, you're missing something. You're not doing well here. Other times I'm like, yo, you should go through a fucking party. You're killing it. Like, what are we not happy about?
Yeah.
You know? And it's just self can't see self, right? That old adage, but I love the cosmic mirrors one. I had that stapled up on my wall, actually, that exact quote.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? And you had said that you were sitting at Whole Foods, and this ability to internalize, right? That's not something that at a certain point in time, dude, like I can't, and there's still certain points in time that I can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. And I need to go get that cosmic mirror, right? But you were kind of talking about like where you're at, living this life in sobriety, right? And how you've kind of gone down this path where you're living alone now, right? And it's giving you this ability to hone that, right? To notice that I'm feeling this shame that isn't me, but like it feels like it is, right? But you're able to work through it and have that spiritual experience with that mentor or with that friend sitting at Whole Foods. And I kind of wanted you, if you could bring up a little bit about like what you're doing, that internal practice right now by just simply living alone, you and your dog, right?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like I'm in a great relationship right now, but I currently do, like I live in an apartment by myself. And I think in the beginning, I think I had a tendency.
You're still with Robin, right?
Huh?
Who you with? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're happy.
Yeah.
Like
I see y'all's pictures on Facebook. Well, I used to see a lot of y'all's fishing and shit.
Yeah.
Robin's cool as shit, dude.
We recently went skiing in Virginia.
Nice.
Yeah. I was able to fly for the first time. Like I had to get permission. I had to get permission from Homeland Security.
That's wild.
Yeah. But
back to those ankle monitors that we talked about.
Yeah,
that's still a thing.
It is still a thing. I mean, just like the constant process of self-examination. And I think, in December I celebrated 5 years sobriety.
Sick, dude.
Which, I was that guy where people bet against me.
Mm-hmm. But I remember when you said that to me. You said exactly that line to me. Mm-hmm. You just gave me chills. And I was like, all right, fuck, everyone's betting against me. If this guy did it, I could do it. Like when I say like, yeah, I stole pages out of your book. Like I stole them straight out of your book. I was like, I'm just taking this philosophy and this, like everybody is betting against me. And like, I'm downloading all of it. Dude, I downloaded every bit of information from you that I could. Like,
yeah, I mean, I literally had somebody bet money that I wasn't going to make it.
I remember that.
I remember that story.
He's one of my mentors, right? Like, he wasn't hoping that I didn't make it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think making some money off of that probably wouldn't have,
made him happy.
Yeah. He wouldn't have given two fucks about that. But like, what he was doing is like, he knew that like I was prepared for adversity. And so every time that I pick up a chip, I go ahead and I send him a message and I tell him to hit his pockets. Like pay up,
bro.
Drop out, dude. But like the constant process of self-examination, and I think like over the course of these 5 years, I think there's been multiple times where I've kind of like fallen off the beam.
Yeah.
Right. Where like I've fallen off the beam and I felt a little bit disconnected. And I think I was talking to a sponsee the other day, and we were talking about like staying invested and like learning more about himself, and it kind of hit me. It was like, it's like our phones when our phones upgrade, right? Like the first thing that happens is when after my phone, finishes updating, the first screen that comes up is the tips. Right. And like, I mean, whether you do or whether you don't, but like for me, I scroll through those tips and I find out, oh man, I use my phone for this. This is going to be good to know. Now I can do this. Now I can do this. This isn't really relevant to anything that I'm using this device for, and like maybe I'll flip past that. But the point is that I've got the same phone. Mm-hmm. I've got the same phone, but I've just updated. And so there's all this new stuff that I can do. And I think that's what sobriety's been for me. Yeah. It's just been like the constant growth. And as we grow, it's important to like take a step back, get with God. You know, for me, it was like sitting in my apartment with God and my dog and not running to a meeting, not going and picking up 15 more sponsees, not picking up a bunch more service commitments, and really just learning what it was like to be me, because I change. I learned all that stuff and it gave me a lot of freedom in the beginning. But like throughout this process, man, I've got to take some time and I've got to relearn me, and I've got to see in areas that I've grown. Maybe I've shedded some stuff that I really don't need anymore. I've got to see like what I'm capable of, because unless I know me, unless I know what I'm capable of, then I really don't know what I have to offer anybody. Like whether it's in a romantic relationship, whether it's in a relationship with you guys, my job, like, and unless I know exactly what I have to offer in those kind of situations, everything is on false pretenses, man. And that's why I had never been able to have a healthy relationship in any way, shape, or form, right? Like with my daughter, you know, with my family, with significant others, employers, like all that stuff failed. And so like this constant being willing to get uncomfortable and like re-examine myself, and my whole recovery has changed. One of the biggest things that's changed for me is my morning routines. Like it has continued to grow. In the beginning, it was the norm, right? I'm reading this, I'm reading this, I'm reading this, I'm reading these 3 pages, you know what I mean? And you know, and that's just, you know, that's what it was. And that's what I needed. But it's changed, you know, and I like things simple, you know, and that's one of the biggest things that's changed is like consistently my morning routine and how I get connected at the beginning of the day is like continue to change. And right now I'm in a spot where the thing that makes the biggest difference for me is just praying for people that I don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Like I get a lot of freedom from that.
Yeah.
I get a lot of freedom from that. And in the middle of all that, it's like, man, I get to be more helpful because, you know, I wasn't pulled from the fire for nothing, you know? And what do they say? I got to keep my sword sharp.
Yeah.
You know?
The praying for other people too, whether I mean, it's something that I did like pretty early on, and then it kind of, you know, as you were saying, things start to shift, things start to fade, right? Like, the ego starts to reconstruct or whatever it is, right? And we start kind of circling around us and whatnot, not what we can do for others and stuff like that. And I'm reading this book now, and my mornings is whatever it is, a few pages a chapter or whatnot, and it's Thinking Indigenous. And they talk about like the prayers that they have, and they always end their prayer with calling upon Creator to look out for the world, for the people in it, for they love you as I love you. And the final thing is just being grateful for the opportunity to do so. And man, we talk about like the type of energy that we've shot out into the world a lot, right? And when what they talk about when you're praying for, or even your thoughts are down the avenue of others outside of you, whether you don't like them or whether you like them or whether it's just everybody, it is the positive kind of energy that you're throwing into this puddle that is life, right? And I've started to attach to that now, to add that to my morning routine, and then my prayers throughout my day. That's how I end my prayers all the time now, is that, you know, I'm making sure that I'm praying for the world, for the people in it, and just grateful for that opportunity to do so. So
yeah, I think it just all starts out with our thoughts and our attitudes. You know, my sponsor, a lot of the times whenever I talk to him, because there's been several times, you know, in this deal where I've been going through something tough, and my sponsor comes and he says, you know, let's get back to the basics. You know, and in that, we set up a time at the very beginning of the day where we have these conversations, you know, and one of the things that he likes to say is go out and shoot your arrow today. Like, and I think like the point behind that is like everything starts out with our thoughts and ideas, you know, and the things that we put into the universe and the energy that we put into the universe, like it's really powerful. And so, you know, he talks about an arrow being like our thoughts and our attitudes, right? And like, because when I shoot an arrow into the air, like, even though I can't see the air, you know, even though I can't see what's happening around that arrow, the universe is manipulating and things are moving around so that arrow can travel through it. You know, and I think that's the same thing that really happens with our thoughts and our attitudes. And so like the things that I put into the universe, man, like are definitely going to have an impact, not only on my day, but the people who I interact with. And so at 5 years into this deal, my morning routine is absolutely the most vital part of every day for me.
Brother, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. We, you know, Brett and I in the 40 Wellness Company, like as a whole, dude, we harp on morning routines constantly. I've designed and created more morning routines than I know what to do with, but they're always found, you know, grounded in several core principles. So, dude, I'd love to hear like what your morning routine looks like these days.
Yeah.
Lay it on us.
Immediately, every day, start off with gratitude.
Nice.
Gratitude is the foundation for everything. Gratitude,
such a simple but amazing concept.
Yeah, I mean, gratitude puts me in a position to be selfless. It puts me in a position to appreciate things. It puts me in a position to feel blessed, like, and understand that the problems that I have today are great fucking problems to have. You know, yes. I remember in my addiction, I remember sitting around, and I remember I was at a friend's house. Obviously, we were doing some stuff that we didn't need to be doing, and he had the TV on in the background. And I remember seeing this commercial, and it was this husband and this wife sitting at the kitchen table, and like they were pulling their hair out because their credit card debt and their credit scores, you know. And I remember very vividly, like I turned to my homeboy and I said, I wish I was fucking worried about my credit score, you know? Because at the time, like, I didn't want to get in my car and leave because there was black Suburbans parked down the street waiting for me, you know? And it was like, I wish I was just worried about my credit score. Today I am. Today I am, you know? And it's like, so gratitude puts me in a position to understand that the problems that I might be complaining about right now are really like fantastic problems to have. And and not just gratitude for the surface stuff. Right. You know, taking action based around gratitude, because they talk about gratitude being an action, is like understanding like the things that I'm grateful for. It's like the small things, right? The guy who's in another country carrying a bag around on his back in a hot ass field, carrying coffee beans and plumbing that runs uphill that allows me to make coffee in the morning. It's like that small stuff, the stuff that I take advantage of. When I get a new sponsee, the very first thing that I tell them is, for the next 30 days, I want you to send me 3 things you're grateful for every morning, and we can't repeat the same thing in 30 days. And it puts me on my game too, because I jump back into it. It's like, you know, I get off the beam, but then, you know, I start working with somebody, and it's like I get back on. And the way it's been described to me is like, from point A to point B is like, you know, there's a straight line from point A to point B, and if a plane takes off, right, from like here to Europe, there's a straight line that connects it to one point and one point. That's where it's taking off from. That's where it needs to land. And throughout that flight, things happen, right? There's other air traffic. They have to move around it. They have to like follow jet streams. They have to take different paths and stuff. But like what matters is like they're getting off the beam. But like as long as they're back on that point by the time we land, you know, everything's good. And so like, you know, working with other guys. So yeah, to answer your question, is like gratitude, and then sitting quiet, asking to be provided with opportunities to be useful. And then I always pray for my enemies, and then I pray for the people who I love.
Nice.
And it's very simple. It's very simple. You know,
I like that.
But I make sure that I hit it. I make sure that I hit it every day. The other thing for me is like, some people like guided meditations, you know, some people like meditation music. I've done everything. I love Apache flute music to meditate to. I think you remember that because I used to bust that out. Apache flute music. But my big thing around my meditation and my morning routine is being outside.
Yeah.
I love it when it's really, really cold outside and I get to put on like a really big jacket and some coffee and just go sit down outside.
Yeah. You should take your shoes off.
Ground up.
And feel my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swap energy with the earth. It's like a real science. That's part of our morning routine. So I have people go outside and kick their shoes off and stand in the sunlight and give themselves like affirmations where they feel it here, practice gratitude. And I always laugh. I'm like, your neighbors are gonna think you're crazy for a few weeks, but it don't fucking matter, bro. In 4 weeks, if you're not a happier person, you know, you can tell me so, but I won't believe you. Like, I won't believe you. I love to switch them up with the with the meditations in the morning too. Like it depends on like if I'm busy trying to like put out this energy that says, you know, I'm here for X, Y, and Z. Like sometimes I'm like really trying to manifest things in my meditations, right? And so I'm visualizing them then the whole day, right? Like my mantra, I'll do mantra prayers around it, mantra meditations around it. I'll make it my morning ritual prayer, which is what I call like right when your eyes open, like what's the prayer that comes out of your mouth? I'm really big into putting my phone down too. I mean, I'm up at like 3 a.m. So that I can have hopefully an hour before my daughter likes to get up at 4. I've raised a crazy one. Hopefully an hour before she gets up to do some sort of meditation, some sort of breath work, some sort of body work. I like to stretch or foam roll. If I have the option for an early morning gym, you know, get all that cortisol out of your head, bring the dopamine in. But probably my absolute favorite morning routine is when I'm like a dog on a bone trying to hunt down something. I'm trying to manifest this thing. And like it used to be this company, right? It used to be having a family with a daughter in a house, right? Like those woke up praying about it, being grateful for it, praying as if I already had it, being grateful that I already had it, right? And then going through my day as if it was mine already. And sure enough, they just sort of, the world just has this way of just like, here you go, right? Like you want to act like it's yours and like pretend like it's yours and be responsible like it's yours and practice gratitude like it's yours. Here you go, right? And those are my favorite, dude. And I remember early in sobriety, like it was very, 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 very simple. It was, God, thank you for keeping me sober today, right? That was my morning ritual prayer, right? And then I'd sit in meditations. I'm going to stay sober today. I'd mantra it. I'm going to stay sober today. I can't stay sober today. I'm going to stay sober. Then I make my affirmations around it. I am going to stay sober today. I have the ability to stay sober today. I will stay sober today. And so I'm hitting it from all fucking angles, right? And then I'm going throughout the day and I'm praying about it. And at night, you know, signing off with the same ritual prayer. A little different though. God, thank you for keeping me sober today. Let's do it again tomorrow. Right. And then what's beautiful about this, right, is like this exact same formula can be switched and modified depending on like what is the main goal that day. Right. Because at a certain point, hopefully like your recovery becomes your foundation, not something you ignore or something you put on the back burner, but it's a foundation that's solid that you can build other things off of. Right. And so it doesn't have to be my main mantra that day, right? Like I can rest satisfaction knowing that like I do what I'm supposed to do, right? And I'm connected and I do the work, but now I can like mantra and I can manifest other things than sobriety, right? Like I'm as sober as I'm going to get today, right? And so it's been really fun to implement different goals essentially, right? Different directions, different aims, different targets. And then it's been just an absolute godsend to be able to work with people and get them thinking this way and get them dreaming more and wanting more, because then what happens is now they have purpose, right? And now they have passion. And now like, dude, what happens is you wake up one day and you have some things you earned and you deserve and you're grateful for. And you're like, bro, I would never get fucking high again, right? Like, why would I want to do that? Like, look how happy I am. Now, obviously, right, we still need to be careful there, but like, for the most part, right? Like if you're trending in a direction of having a purpose, then like, bro, like we're using that recovery for something. And it, dude, you know, to circle back, it all starts in the morning. Like it all starts in the morning. I kind of like set my staff, so to speak, at the beginning of the day, right? And a lot of times I also knows this, and I'm sure I've said it on here before, but like I read, I go down all of these different spiritual books or whatever it is that I read in the morning, going back to one of the main books that we all know, right? And what I allow is the reading kind of sets my intention for the day. I pull something from it, and then I set my staff in the ground that day, and that's what I'm driving towards, right? I think that this is just me, right? But like God needs to put things in front of my face. The universe needs to put things in front of my face a lot. And 9 times out of 10, man, it's pretty wild that like, that's what I needed to do that day, right? Whether it be some sort of understanding, whether it be patience, whether it be all of these different things that I learned from these readings. And it's like, that's what I'm driving towards that day, right? That's what my prayers are circled around that day. And then my day always ends with the gratitude around the opportunity to do so. The opportunity to walk a path that you placed for me,
right? And as long as I'm open and willing to, you know, to do that, right? And so that's the first thing when I open my eyes. God allow me to be willing today.
For sure. And I think the big thing is perception, right? Like, because I don't really have the ability to perceive things in the greatest way unless I'm connected, you know? And I believe, like, we go through, you know, I go throughout the day, and it's like, sometimes I'm going to have some pretty fucked up thoughts, man. Sometimes I'm going to have some pretty fucked up thoughts. Like, it can still be a pretty dark place up here. And sometimes I really can't do anything about those thoughts because I am human, right? But getting connected in the beginning of the day, you know, allows me to change my perception. And as long as I have the right perception, then it can alter those thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, and so, like, when I don't have the ability to really do anything about them, being connected, my perception will allow me to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because then I can perceive things, then I can take things in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the end of the world. And I'm big on just operating as if. You know, like, I try to operate as if, and, like, both my recovery, you know, my relationships with other people, and, like, you know, a big part of that is my professional career. It's like, I try to operate as if. You know, man, if my goal today is, like, to really be useful to somebody, is like, man, like, I get out there and I just start fucking being useful to somebody. I don't really spend too much time trying to figure out who that person is going to be. I just start trying to be useful, and it's like, boom, like you were saying, it's like God places somebody in my path and I can be useful for them. You know, if I have some goals that I want to, like, manifest at work, I just operate as if.
Yeah,
if I have something that I'm seeking or a position that I'm looking for, it's like, I just operate like as if I already have it. And if somebody tells me to get back in my lane, then I get back in my lane. But I'm that person that if nobody tells me what my lane is, man, I'm taking the road. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I do. And so, you know, like, operating as, you know, just as if, right? Like, operating as if, like, I already have somebody in front of me to help today. Operating as if I've already got the job. You know, operating as if, like, you know, I'm just being helpful to my daughter or my family or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Operating as if I already have a holistic wellness company.
Yeah.
Fucking did that for 6 months before we fucking launched. Dude.
I saw it.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it happening for, you know, about a year and a half when you were managing that PHP house. You know what I mean?
Dude, that was my petri dish, bro. Talk about just, like, the ultimate, like, sample, right? Of, like, human beings who have some sobriety, right? And that's what 40 Wellness is all about, is like, okay, you got a little bit of sobriety, right? You have your basic necessities taken care of, and, like, okay, what are we going to do with it now?
Yeah, how am I going to grow?
How are we going to grow?
Yeah.
How do we maximize your life in sobriety? How do we make you happy? How do we make you whole? And, bro, that PHP house, man, like...
you were operating as if for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it every day.
It was sweet, man. I was very fortunate. And God was like, here's your sample size, bro. Here's your petri dish to see, like, what works, what doesn't work, who does what doesn't work. And because that's exactly what we did, man. Saw around 1,500 people come through the doors. And I got to see, like, exactly what happens when you take a guy with 30 to 60 days sobriety, you give him food, shelter, people who care for him, and a support system. How does he act? How does he show up? What are his habits? What aren't his habits? And, like, what works for the vast majority of guys, right? And so I got to see, like, oh shit, you know, staying on your phone all day, never praying, and being negative, that has worked for no one I've seen so far, right? And then I got to see, like, on the opposite end of the spectrum, like, guys up early. You know, I was 4 a.m. riser then. I'd walk out into the living room, I see guys praying or working out or meditating or, like, doing step work. And you know what I saw with those guys? Most of those guys work in treatment now, right? And so, like, it's just this beautiful little opportunity I had to just, like, witness, like, this is working, this doesn't work. And then, like, people who needed help, like, okay, what is it people need help in? Like, what is it? What's the vast majority of people don't understand? You know, I happen to be pretty good in that, but I got better at doing it, right? Like, I studied more, I learned more, I took more certifications to, like, be more founded in those things that, like, the vast majority of guys don't understand or people don't understand. But yeah, dude, and it was all about perspective, right? It was all about my perspective on that place. People always be like, how long are you going to manage that house for? Don't you want to do something else? Blah, 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 blah. I was so fucking thankful to have a room that was mine, first of all, right? Second, so thankful that like I had built in people I had to help, right? Like I didn't even have to go look for people that needed help. They were in the room next door, right? And like just so incredibly thankful for that time in my life. That house means a lot to me. And what I learned there, you know, started a whole company that hopefully is going to help a lot of people down the road. And so, you know, super grateful.
What I do have a question for you, actually, Austin. When you're talking about watching that happen, right? Because one of the things too is not only perspective that we talk about and how people view what's happening to them in those moments, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? Like you get a lot of guys that are like, something is coming upon me and this is happening to me.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm getting to do this, right? Where did you see kind of breakthroughs in like the guys that started to put forth the effort to work out in the morning, to meditate in the morning, to do step work in the morning, to just be up doing something? Dude, I remember even being happy that cats were up, like making their lunches for the day. I was like, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, and then, just plus, right?
Yeah.
If a dude's out back working out, or if a guy's sitting there, you know, writing some stuff down, like doing some things, rather than the dude that's like running and rushing and screaming because he doesn't have the shower, right? Did you see something that that helped, or that you could even see that had them break through that effort, right? Like break through that precipice that that had them starting like to do it every day, right? Then you saw that same guy doing it every day.
Yeah, I mean, there were some guys who were placed in a position where they utilized their anger for good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think some guys were angry about how their life had turned up, and they were just fucking ready to plant their foot in the ground and make a fucking change and make a difference and do it an about phase, right? And but you can't wish more pain and suffering on certain people, right? Yeah. And some people just needed more hard lessons. But if I were to pinpoint, if I were to call it one thing I saw that helped the most, and you guys are going to think this is crazy, but I saw more than anything, guys who ate decent food felt better throughout the day and were more productive, more useful, and more happy. Dude, guys who ate like shit felt like shit all fucking day long, and they thought it was because they didn't have their drugs, they didn't have blah 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 X, Y, and Z. It's because they're eating fucking poison all goddamn day, and they're spiking their glucose, and it's crashing out beneath them, and then they just become addicted to the next sugar, right? They become addicted to the next sugar, to the next fucking processed bullshit.
The energy drinks that were flowing, all that stuff.
And now we've just substituted fucking your chemical for this fucking chemical, and I very rarely saw that work out. But guys who I saw, and I'm not talking all the time, guys who would make one healthy meal a day seemed to have just happier something going on, right? And dude, what's crazy is you eat one healthy meal a day. Okay, maybe I'll go to the gym. You know what I mean? Or in reverse, you would see that too, right? If I'm working out, I might as well eat something healthy, right? And those for sure. Nutrition was huge. It was huge. I spent a lot of time talking nutrition to these guys, and you know, I was in a position then where I could just flat out talk shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember.
And I would. And it worked a lot. It would work a lot. You know what I mean? Because I would do it, you know, we were friendly, right? And so I wouldn't be like some like, you know, asshole. Well, maybe a little bit asshole.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were asshole.
But hey, man, you can be mad at me all you want. If it gets you to eat a chicken breast and some rice and you feel better, okay. Yeah. Thank me later. Yes, is, you know, while we're talking about that, you know, how sad it is. We just had to bury a good friend of ours who came through treatment with us, and he was one of those guys who used to, and I love this kid to death. Loved him to death. He was such a good dude. Super sad that he passed. Fentanyl overdose. His service was last Saturday. I went and saw him in the hospital with Brett 2 weeks ago.
It was Christmas Day.
Yeah. So super sad, but he was one of those guys, man. He had done the full switch to just eating processed shit because he didn't really know any other way. And I used to watch him microwave a 2 liter or a gallon of ice cream.
Yeah, it was a gallon.
A gallon of ice cream, mint chocolate chip, and just drink it like soup. And I would talk so much shit to him. I watch him gain so much weight, and then eventually the shit talking like worked, and he's like, "Okay, let's switch it up," you know, in his funny little accent and his little voice, and he did. And then I helped him lose a bunch of weight, got him into the gym, and then he went on to be sober for like, you know, 3 or 4 years until he relapsed and died.
Yeah.
Here's a question. It's like we've been losing people for a long time, you know, in addiction, in active alcoholism, and also in sobriety. How does it affect you? And like, what's the difference today, you know, with like multiple years of sobriety when we lose somebody? Is like, you know, internally, man, like, how does that hit us different? Like, how does it hit you different?
Probably always depends on like who the person was, to be honest. I think I'm always a little mad at first. I think my first my jolt reflex is to be fucking pissed at fentanyl, at the, you know, I do what I'm not supposed to do, right? I start pointing fingers at everybody, right? And that's just my nature. And then I quickly come to my senses and I do an about face, but like right out of the gate, my gut reflex is God damn fentanyl, and then I get mad, and then I start thinking about everybody's died, and then I spiral for, honestly, only about 60 seconds, right?
Because it's raw now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's raw now. Like, something like that happens, and it's like, I don't have the ability to go get high. You know what I mean? To drown it out.
Yeah.
You know, and to deaden that, you know, and so it definitely hits a little different. What about you?
Yeah, it's I would say, like, real quick, I don't know if I could angle it down to like 60 seconds. I don't really know, but that gut punch where the air kind of comes out of you, if you've ever felt that before, if you've fallen on your back or whatever happens, right? And they, right, because like I think it's a lot of fear, right? A lot of that comes on, and then, man, I have been, and Austin probably could attest to this. I read a book not too long ago, and it talked about.
You read a lot of books.
I do read a lot of books.
A lot of books.
So it talked a lot about the power of impermanence, the power of thinking about how everything is impermanent, right? And not to the point of like, I don't love that person or anything like that, but knowing that that is bound to happen at some point in time, and it is not your position nor your power to have it or have it not happen in that time. Do you get upset because it feels like it was absolutely, it was probably not in God's time either, because we're talking about fentanyl overdoses or drug overdoses at all, right? Or anything like that, because drug addicts and alcoholics certainly build their own road, walk their road, right? But I do look at the world a lot, and sometimes, man, this becomes a bit of a fault too, as well, because I feel like having these types of conversations, due to Destiny, who I've been with, we've had a lot of loss since we've been together. Her family, us together. We've dealt with a lot of stuff, and sometimes, when we have these conversations, it comes to a fault, right? This power of impermanence that I talk about, because it allows me to move on pretty quickly. And one of the things that I always do with our friend, me and Destiny adopted a dog together, not this one. It was a dog previously, and she just suddenly died, right? That was pretty rough. I feel very, very attached to dogs, and there's a whole background in my story about my dog Olive, about why I absolutely believe that there's dogs here too, like that saved my life, right? There's some shit that popped up another time. But what I do is I bring these people, our friend, one of our friends that we lived with a couple years back, that both you and I went to his service of life, and I bring them into meditation. And what I do is I visualize them. And every time I've done this is not a 9 times out of 10 thing. This is a 10 times out of 10 thing. They have told me something. And it's always been a positive route. And I don't know if that's just my built-in perspective in my mind and that's what works, but that sits with me. And our friend, my dog, our other friend, the other people that I've lost, they always tell me something positive, not even about me, but about what's going on, the opportunity and the experience that we get to have, and to absolutely enjoy it and continue to move past it. And for whatever reason, that stuff reliefs and presses out from my heart to where I don't carry it around. Because I am that guy that would lash out like Austin did, but somehow, for some reason in the past, I would never be able to separate from them.
Is it scary? Like I mean, when for you guys, I mean, like, is it when somebody like who's been on the path with us, and I'll just speak for me, is like sometimes it's scary. It definitely makes me like second guess what I'm doing. Not for very long, right? Like I don't shame spiral, but you know, when something like that happens, like obviously, like it's always tragic. Some are more emotional than others, you know.
Yeah, but some are more emotional than others, for sure.
Some are definitely more emotional than others. But like it always has me. I don't know. Like I'm always like somber. Mm-hmm. You know, like it makes me. It definitely quiets me down. I'm pretty like. I'm a pretty positive guy, like jumping around. Like I've always got jokes. I use those to deflect, obviously. But,
and I think that's probably why I've built in the process that I do.
Yeah.
Right, is because like it allows me to release that fear. Because I do think, man, there's a lot of fear, especially around a homeboy that like has been doing this, right? And then you turn around and you're like, shit. Like, you know what I mean? And like you said, 60, a minute, whatever, minute and a half, like you're thinking like looking for rocks to trip over. You know what I mean?
Like, am I doing something?
Yeah.
Like, am I doing something fucking wrong?
Yeah.
Because like, you know, and man, like if there's anything that I can do in those situations is like, man, like I think about what he would want from me, or, you know, or what she would wish for me.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like, it's obviously like never a good thing, but like I always take it as a sign that like I probably need to tighten up myself, because I can always tighten up. I can always tighten up, and you know, when something like that happens, it really has me kind of like check what I'm doing. Maybe I've been falling off my meditation for a couple of days, or maybe you know, maybe I haven't really been paying attention to this, and it's like it always like that's what throws me back on the beam.
Yep.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that throw me back on the beam, but if there's one thing that will kind of like catapult me straight back to the beam, you know, it's going to be.
Well, that's like a shift in your factory settings, right?
Yeah.
Like our factory settings would have just been, let me go get fucked up.
Yeah.
Let me go drown this, or let me go.
And like today, that's not even a thought at all.
Yeah.
It's not even an option on the board.
My factory settings have switched, right? And I'm not saying permanently or anything like that, right? We always talk about how, like, our, you know, the dark, it's just still a dark spot up here, right? It still whirls around. It still goes crazy where it's like, oh shit, I feel like I'm trying to lasso it sometimes. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, but like
Getting a good visualization right here. Right with the lasso, this dark cloud swirling around.
coming back in, because like I had, and it's something that Carl Jung talks about too. Is like meeting that dark cloud, right? And like I want to lasso it and bring it in. Like, let's talk, dude.
Yeah.
Like, instead of me running from you and avoiding you forever, and then just going and drowning it away, whether it be a needle, a bag, or a bottle, and like, let's fucking talk. Let's go. Right? Like, this is the experience that God has given me. And I was going to say this a little bit earlier, but that's also sometimes one of my morning prayers is like, Creator, I call upon you because let's fucking go, dude. Like, let's go. Right? Like, this is great.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head. Is like, that's an experience that God has given us. Right. And like, as tragic as something like that may be. And when I'm working with guys, one thing that I make very clear to them very early on is like those spiritual experiences that we experience, right? Like through living by principle or whatever it is. Nowhere in this whole deal does it say that every one of them is going to be pleasant.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, that's where like my ability to perceive things in a different way is like, you know, what you know, what kind of experience is this for me? Mm-hmm. You know,
but even then, right? Like the shitty things I go through today, if I can look at it objectively with the 15 years of just absolute bullshit, it's like, dude, you know, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but fucking A, it's a whole different game I'm playing, bro. It's a whole different, like today I complain about, you know, paying a bill that I have the fucking money to pay. You know what I'm saying? It's like fucking wild, bro.
Yeah.
I remember a lot like Jacob was talking about earlier, right? With the commercial that he saw. They were talking about credit card debt or whatever, stressing out. I did the exact same experience, except it was a nurse. I was in detox, and she was talking to another nurse about how mad she was, her fucking mortgage, blah 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 blah. And I said it out loud. I'm still detoxing, so I'm still a complete prick. I said it out loud.
Nothing changed after detox.
I say it immediately, right? I'm like, must be nice to have a fucking mortgage, right? And like, so it's funny, right? Just like the fuck you, Jacob. The perspective just totally changes, you know? Yeah.
That the funny thing is the way that you guys said that you react to that, right? My reaction was always like, because we said it, I think we said it like last time, and I always say it this way because it is the most ridiculous and selfish thing ever, that like I thought the universe and a God, if there was one, like was like pinpointing me every morning, right? Like, where's Brett at so I can fucking get him today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I thought that, right? So I remember whether it be the commercial or
where's Brett at?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fucking coming for it. That motherfucker,
I'm
bro.
getting him again today.
Scoped
like
up.
it's insane, but I thought like that, right? And I remember when those things would pop up, it was always whether I lashed out at it, if it was like the TV or internally or whatever it is, and I would always be like, you think you got fucking problem, you know what I mean? Like it was always that. Meanwhile, I'm sitting at home in Philadelphia, right? Meanwhile, I'm getting ready to go to my job, and like all these things just it didn't matter. Everybody, you know, no one's problems were like my problems, right? Mm-hmm. And no one knew what was going on in turn. And literally, I used to say that type of stuff. Meanwhile, like if it ever was like, hey, do you want to talk about it, right? With anybody, like, nah, I'm good.
Well,
it's easy to just get thrown out of gratitude. Like, like just the other day, like I got in my car and it said, you know, 300 miles till maintenance, you know, and I looked down and I was like, son of a bitch. Like, I'm going to have to go pay for an oil change so I can get to the job that I have that treats me well. You know what I mean? And it's like, son of a bitch. And I have the money to do it. Like, and I have the money to do it. And so, you know, it's, but this is where like, this is where being involved in something that forces you to connect with other people like comes in so handy. And it's like, you know, this is where we use it to the advantage. It's like, I've got brothers, right? Like I've got people who I can call who are going to be like, you mean to tell me you're upset that you have a great job to go to and you have the money to pay for an oil change and you have a car? You know what I mean? Like,
and you have a car?
Yeah. And you have a car, you know, like, you know, and this is where like, you know, when like you were saying, when self can't see self, it's like this is where we depend on the people who are around us. You know what I mean? To like really kind of what is it? Willing to step on my feelings so they don't have to step over my grave. Yeah. Like, you know,
I remember I had a mentor in my life, and he would never. Just the way he would bring it to me was always, I'm a guy that needs to be jolted. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like, that's how it's going to get through to me, or I'm going to like, something's going to sit somewhere. And I'd be laying in, telling him about what was going on, right? And it was something about this person saying this and this and this to me, and like as I'm complaining, right? As I'm having zero gratitude, he just cuts through it. He's like, "Man, it's so beautiful to have people in your life that hold you accountable." You know what I'm saying? And I just like, you know, like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I still think we have this super unique disposition and ability for a completely different perspective change than say like your normal person, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who's never, and most people have been through some shit, right? But sometimes the shit they go through doesn't force them to take a long, hard look introspectively.
Yeah.
Right. And analyze that you are the fucking problem and you're also the fucking solution. Right. So how in the world do normal people do it sometimes is like how, you know what I mean? Like, how do you, you know, and what's so funny, dude, is I meet people who are just rays of fucking sunshine. And it looks like the world is just always smiling on them. I'm like, this person's never had anything gone wrong and their life has always been golden and I fucking love them. Right. And then at the same token, right, like you see people and I interact with people who have never had to do any introspection, right? Have never had to search for a higher power, have never had to analyze that they're the fault, right? Have never had to try a holistic practice to remedy some of these solutions, right? Or a meeting or anything like this. And so in doing so, it's almost as if it's like a more shallow existence, right? Their ability to see like a deeper meaning and a deeper perspective and have a true perspective change seems harder. And so like, I almost sometimes, dude, I feel fucking bad for people who haven't been through it, dude. I really do. People who have been through it and get through on the other side, dude, for the most part, just have this ability to just radiate fucking sunshine sometimes, you know?
Well, that's what, like, keeping gratitude for the disease that I have, but making sure I put respect on its name as well, right? Like, understanding that this thing is lethal, as we were just talking about, right? But man, am I grateful for the fact that I read all of these books, right? I do a morning meditation all the time, right? Like that they're sitting here talking about God and introspective work. Like, man, shit, that stuff wasn't going to happen normally. Not for me.
Yeah.
Right. And like, God, like, it's just fucking beautiful, dude. It's beautiful to look outside. And I think I've talked about this before. Like, I was a like party all night guy, right? And then when the birds were coming through, I was like, fuck, everyone's going to see me now, right? Even me. I'm going to see me now. And it used to terrify me. And now, like, I wake up with those birds and I'm like, let's fucking go. This is incredible. And the perspective shift that you're having. And I'm super grateful for the opportunity to do that. And what gave me that opportunity was this disease that I have.
I think self-examination in general is, it's a double-edged sword. It's definitely a double-edged sword, man, because, like, I'm not going to lie to you, man, ignorance was bliss. Ignorance was bliss, right? There was a time where I could just treat anybody any which way. I could do anything that I wanted to do. And if I was going to die from it, like, it didn't really matter, as long as it didn't hurt. You know what I mean? As long as, like, you know, as long as it wasn't going to be a long, drawn-out death, I was just okay with it. It turned out like that's kind of what it was for about 25 years. You know what I mean? It was like I was just on my way. But like through the process of self-examination and like gaining a newfound awareness and looking at yourself to try to learn who you are so you can be better for like not only me but like also the people who I love, it's definitely a double-edged sword. Because if I choose not to do anything about it, you know what I mean? Like, being aware doesn't really mean shit. It doesn't mean anything, man. Like, unless I'm willing to do something about it. And so it's like, you know, I pick up that sword whenever I start this process because I'm going to continue to make mistakes regardless. And I pick up that sword. And if I don't do anything about it, man, you can bet your ass I'm turning it inward. You know?
Yeah. It's it used to be said to me that awareness is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? It can be.
Yeah.
And yeah, like all this stuff can pop up, but kind of to what 4D is about, dude, right? Like, unless you're doing something about it, right? Man, I still remember this story, right? About when you would talk about your defects and you'd carry that sword and you'd chop the head off of that defect, right? And just kick it into a cavernous thing or whatever it was, right? I remember that story when I was first coming through. But like, yeah, man, unless I'm using the sword that like that awareness gives me, that awareness puts in my hand, I'm shit out of luck again still. I'm probably even more painful, right?
Yeah. But what happens before that, right? before I get to discard that defect is really like coming to terms with the fact that that defect is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if I'm not careful, I'll shame spiral behind that defect.
Yeah.
And the truth is like that defect got me to a place to where I don't need it anymore. Like without that defect, I probably wouldn't be alive. Like the same things that I shame spiral about, the same things, and like in early recovery is like that's where that story came from. And about 6 months sober, where I was doing all the things, but I'm still can't shake like my old ways of thinking and treating people. It was like I was shame spiraling, you know. And it got to the point where like, man, those defects that I'm experiencing a lot of shame about are the very things that kept me alive.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an affect that God has given us that we've just manipulated and turned into what works best for us, right?
And it was
In the
never a
moments of
defect
times.
until it started causing me pain.
Exactly.
You know? And so like understanding that those things are a part of me, and that's exactly what I needed to be, that perception piece. Understanding that that's exactly what I needed to have in order to get me to a place where I'm at today, where I can understand it and, you know, try to act opposite. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing just being in a spot today where I've got resources and people and books, and books, but like things like morning
You
meditation.
just call them for the summaries, bro. That's what I do.
Like morning
Just give me the Cliff
meditation.
Notes, dog. Just
Yeah, there's a new app where I can take a picture of a book and then speed up the reading and shoom, just kind of like blast it into me.
Neuralink that shit.
Yeah,
Ding ding.
yeah, but
do it.
it's a beautiful thing just being able to engage in that process of self-examination and like come out the other side. Because listen, man, like even with a little bit of sober time now, there are still days where I feel like I'm just wandering aimlessly. There's still days where I just don't know where I'm going. The only difference is that I'm just moving my feet. That's what changes everything. It's like sometimes I still have the same thoughts. Sometimes I still wake up and I just have no idea how it's going to go. I have no idea. I just keep moving my feet. And sometimes it's like, I don't know, there's like a magnetic field or something like that just kind of draws my feet moving in the right direction. Sometimes it's to one of you guys. Sometimes it's to my sponsor. Sometimes it's to a meeting. Sometimes it's to a little bench over there,
Yep.
you know, just sitting outside. Man, one of the things that was really big for me in early sobriety was the labyrinths.
Oh, to like walk.
The labyrinths. Do you guys know the story behind those labyrinths? Like
I don't even know what you're talking
how
about.
they're designed. You know, they have like the stone paths that are in a circle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like outside of like some hospitals and some
Yeah,
churches
yeah.
and stuff like
Okay.
that. There's a big one at that church that's right down by the Y in Oak Hill.
Okay.
That the church that's up on the hill, and I would go to that. And the way that those are designed is every turn in those labyrinths is a 180-degree turn, and there's a bench that sits in the middle. And so as you go through that labyrinth, you know, it takes about 15, 16 minutes as you go through that labyrinth. And every time that you take a turn, it's a 180-degree turn. And then your left brain is facing the center. And then you take a turn, right brain is facing the center. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you're kind of equalized,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
equalized and balanced out by
Yeah.
the time you get to the center. So you can sit down on that bench and go into a good deep meditation.
Sick.
That's cool.
Sick.
I never heard that story about
Yeah.
labyrinth. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and because I didn't really know how to meditate. I remember my mentor in the beginning would always tell me, he'd tell me to make sure that I put my feet flat on the ground, and if my mind was racing, he'd tell me to wiggle my toes and feel them on the ground, and he'd tell me to let go of my body. But walking meditation, and I would just go out there to that labyrinth, man, and I would just walk and I would watch the ground, and by the time I got to the center, man, I was balanced and I could sit down, and like that's where my mind really got quiet.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. I love anything that balances you out, right? You know, that's why we practice this mind, body, spirit thing, right? Is to get the full balance, right? Like I
And it
tried
all
getting
matters.
sober by say what?
And it all matters. Yeah.
And it all matters,
Yeah.
right? And I tried getting sober doing bicep curls. It
We see that.
It didn't fucking work. You know what I mean? It didn't work, right? When I was in prison, I tried getting sober, reading the Bible, and fucking praying my ass off. I'm like, if I know every word of this fucking Bible, when I leave here, I'll stay sober. And I was convinced that didn't fucking work either, right? I was in a psych ward one time for way too fucking long, and thought, if I just learned everything about this disease, if I learned everything this doctor tells me, right, I'll have it mastered, right? I'll learn what pills to take. I'll learn what's wrong with my brain, what neurotransmitters are doing what's wrong with my hormones, what's wrong with my GABA levels, my dopamine. If I just learn everything about it, when I leave, I'll be sober. That didn't fucking work either, right? It's not until you get the balanced approach, right? Or the holistic approach, the full balanced approach that like you really can have some footing to stand on.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a lot of those activities that you were talking about, right? The Bible, the bicep curls, the whatever it was, is like, man, you're just going back to your same attitude, right? Like and again, me too, right? Like same thing. I'm going back to the same attitude that I'm going to strangle this thing out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, that is not how we've learned that it works, right? Yeah. I have to just let go and let happenings happen, right? Mm-hmm. And continue to move forward, but also continue to move forward. Move your feet. The factory settings have been reset to the point that I do continue to move those feet, right? And again, I have to continue to practice it to make sure that I'm moving those feet and continuously going to the gym, continuously meditation, working with other people, stuff like that. Like just continuously doing these things. And what I find is that like, when the perspective is a little weird around something, like my factory setting takes me to a mentor of mine, takes me to one of you guys, you know what I mean? And it's weird, dude. It's weird. Like I called Austin yesterday. I was like, because for the past couple of months, a lot of our conversations on over the phone or whatnot have been about just kind of like, what time do I need to be here? That type of stuff, right? And I'd sat down with a couple of guys and we went through some things, and something just like popped in my brain that I was like, bro, I need to call Austin, just be like, hey man, how are you doing? Like, what's going on in your life? Right. And, that just like, I don't know why, like, you know what I mean? Like something clicks in my brain, like this is what I got to do right now. And I do it.
Yeah.
I love those feelings.
Yeah.
I love those feelings. I teach all of our clients, bro. I'm like, when you're meditating and you're getting quiet and you find that zone and the fucking answer comes to you, and it doesn't matter you don't even know you're asking a question, right? I encourage people to stop meditating and write that shit down, dude.
Oh yeah.
And then that's the next thing I act on, right? Then now I got a direction, a new aim, a new target, a new goal, right? That I can align all of these things with to get there. And dude, I can't tell you how many times, right? Something's rattling around in my head. I can't figure out the answer. I don't know what's going on with this. What is the answer? God, what's the answer? God, what's the answer? And then if I would just shut the fuck up long enough, he would tell me the answer, right? And it happens all the time. Or what's even funner, dude, is exactly what you were talking about. When I'm quiet or I don't know what clicked, but it clicked, right? I'm in a meditation. I didn't even know I had a question, right? But now I have the answer to this question. And, what a cool thing that we get to learn, right? By like practicing this introspective living.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sweet, man.
Where we at? Yeah.
Good to go.
We can wrap up.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Anything else? Dude, let's do, you want to do, I'm going to try and do like a collaboration with the Arbor for their Insta if they want it. Do you want to do like a 1 minute plug for the Arbor?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I can put you in touch with Jared or whatever you want me to do.
Yeah. Just do like a 1 minute plug, and then Dustin's the man. He'll come up with something for us too. Okay. We could probably finish with a little plug for the Arbor, who you are, or what you guys do, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Jacob, and I'm an alcoholic. Yep. You know what I mean? I'm residential program manager for the Arbor. I've done a few things out there. I've done admissions. I've done recovery manager. We're a true dual diagnosis facility, right? Like we look at alcoholism and addiction as being a symptom of an underlying problem, right? There's always something going on internally that makes me not okay with being me, and then I need to solve that problem by getting out of myself by drinking or drugs. Right. So, we use several different models of therapy to really kind of do some internal work, man, and really find out what that is. And it's a holistic, comfortable environment that's not institutional. We believe in We believe in long-term care, right? Like long-term residential care. Our curriculum is built around a 90-day curriculum, and we also offer like full aftercare,
Nice.
which is outpatient sober living with advocacy included in the sober living. They've been around for a while. Our owners are still very much involved in recovering themselves, and like I said, kind of at the beginning, is I'm really happy here. It's built on a foundation of ethics, and it has not changed. It hasn't changed, and so we do really good work.
Sweet, dude. Well, me and Brett owe our fucking sobriety in part to you, brother. Like, you played a fucking instrumental role in me and Brett. I mean, I'll only speak for me. A huge role in my sobriety. You were a guy I looked up to, I admired. I like how the way you speak. You just did it for an hour for us, where you speak in metaphors and like paint a picture, which is very helpful for guys like me, right? Cavemen need picture. And so, like, can't thank you enough, dude. Like, I really can't. Thank you enough. I'm so blessed to call you a brother, and so happy for you. And
I'm really proud of you guys, man. Like, it makes my heart happy, especially to see you guys in the beginning. Right, to see you guys in the beginning, like where you're at now, like you still haven't stopped being a prick, but no, man, like to see how far you guys have come, and like you guys are really synced up with the universe, man, and like understanding your purpose. You know what I mean? And that's really, that's all. That's the most that somebody can hope for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And I'll just second again what Austin had said there, is because and what I was talking about, right? And the bullshit meter thing was so important to me. It was so important to me because I thought all of you were full of shit.
Well, you're from Philly, man. You're from Philly. There's a lot of bullshit going on up there. A lot of bullshit.
But man, like when I looked at you and I was like, for some fucking reason, I just believe what this dude's telling me, right? And
that's scary.
I second the feeling though.
Yeah,
and the same thing. I was like, this motherfucker ain't lying to me about this working. There's no way.
He didn't.
This dude's a gangster. Why would he lie to me about this shit? You know what I mean? Like, look, he's got 2 fucking ankle monitors. Why in the fuck would he lie to me that this works? I'm just gonna take his word for it.
Because I think, dude, it helped that like it was like day 5 I was there when you taught that class and came up to me. You're like, yo, bro, how'd I do? Right? Like,
Yeah.
And I
It's always down to level with you.
It was always level. Yep.
Never
Absolutely.
speaking from a hilltop.
Not at all. Still don't.
Sweet dude. Well, we love you, bro.
Yeah,
I
love you, man.
appreciate you guys having me on, man.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
Yeah,
Sweet.
for sure.
Fuck yeah.